I've been using a forest analogy to describe humans and human relationships. And if that's the case, this pandemic feels like a forest fire. Whether we're talking about health, economics, our routines, our relationships, it feels like a fire has swept through the human forest. Now, while fires in nature are beneficial, I'm not saying that loss of human life is good, nor that disruption of our way of life and this ensuing isolation is good. What I am saying is that good can come out of bad, and good can come during a rebuild of the forest. But where do we start? Well, earlier in this series, I talked about legacy trees. Those are the strong, mature trees of the forest that nurture the younger, weaker trees, bring them along by giving them nutrients, passing those through an underground root-connected network. What's interesting is that researchers say that after there's been a forest fire, if the legacy trees survive, they will rebuild the forest more quickly. But if the legacy trees do not survive, then the forest will take a long time to rebuild. I have a series of lessons on my website called The Legacy Tree, a Christian model for a life of significance. And in it I describe that our role as Christians is to be the legacy trees in the world, providing for others, rebuilding the human forest. So how do we do this? Well, I give a more detailed, comprehensive answer in the Legacy Tree series found on my website. But I have 3 thoughts for you now. The first is legacy trees have big branches that provide a lot of shade. Human legacy trees need to provide the shade of kindness through simple acts, generosity, and awareness of need. Scripturally, the Good Samaritan parable matches this. The Samaritan had an awareness of need, and he acted with kindness and generosity. The second thought is legacy trees plant seeds. 2 of the ways we can plant seeds are through ideas and mentoring. Our communities, churches, and families are going to need ingenuity and creativity in rebuilding and building connections between people again. And speaking of building connections, that's what mentoring is about. It's not just that we touch somebody's life in a very brief way, but mentoring requires getting in there deeper to build the trust so that we can guide and mentor others. This second thought really goes deeper than a donation. And the third thought is that legacy trees create strong individual and group relationships. This requires deep, repeated commitment to the relationship. It's a relationship where there's honesty, sharing, vulnerability. You know, these thoughts about legacy trees and people as legacy trees were there and applied before the pandemic, they applied during the pandemic, and they're going to apply after the pandemic. So I want you to keep this image of yourself as a legacy tree, rebuilding your corner of the human forest. I post devotionals on my YouTube channel on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Next up in Connecting to the Human Forest, in honor of Mother's Day, I talk about spiritual mothers. Look for that on May 9th. Subscribe to my YouTube channel now, like my Facebook page now, and follow along with the series all throughout May.